Hello beautiful, Charmaine here, the Nourished Naturopath, and I'm jumping in to talk today about diffusing anxiety because this has been a huge conversation for me over the past few weeks. I think that's really on my mind, that I'm musing about, that I'm speaking about, that I'm thinking about, that I'm feeling. And subsequently what that means is I will also take myself through the journey of feeling waves of anxiety come up and practicing and really clarifying all of my tools to be able to allow the anxiety to diffuse. So I see anxiety as a message from my soul, from my guidance, from whoever you resonate with, to be like, I'm not quite sure you want to keep going this way. So whenever I'm in a situation that doesn't feel aligned, or if it doesn't feel safe, or if I'm having an intuition, you know what I mean? There's that gut feeling that it's possibly a little bit off, or I've said yes to something where I meant to say no, I really wanted to say no, or even if I'm living in a space that doesn't feel like a truth for me. So I'm running around like a chick with its head cut off, I'm super busy, I'm not stopping to have a nice lunch and a meal with my family, and they're spending way too long on the TV, I'm going to start to get anxiety up, because that is a very clear message when I'm living out of alignment with which is what my truth is. So I have developed a beautiful relationship with feelings of anxiety where, go back 6 years ago, they would have scared the crap out of me. So anytime anxiety would come up in my body, it was like, oh God, I can't do this anymore. I can't feel this again. I don't know what to do. And I just wanted to tap out. I wanted to numb it out. I wanted to distract myself out of it. Anything I could do to push the feelings down. The issue with that is, the more you push down, the more you suppress. It's like you're locking up a cage and you're continuing to push down your truth. And what ends up happening, or what happened for me, is I was doing all of this work and still felt like I was not getting connected to truly who I wanted to be and to living the life that I really wanted to live. I felt like I was living in here, in this part of my body. The rest of my body was numb. And although I'd felt like I'd done all of this work and anxiety had definitely gotten a lot better, I didn't feel like I was alive. I didn't feel like I was thriving. I didn't feel like I was having a beautiful life. I just felt like I was simply surviving. And I think that is a very common place, particularly as women, that we find ourselves often, that we're getting up, we're doing the things, we're going to bed exhausted, we're waking up the next day and we're doing it all over again. And every now and then someone turns around, they're like, how are you? You're like, oh, I actually don't even know. I'm not even sure how I am, because it's been that long since I've checked in with myself. And that is the part that breaks my heart, because when a woman is alive, she is like medicine, and she is healing, and she is just such a joy to this world. Yet I would say the vast majority of women, unless you've moved through a point of self-discovery and self-awareness, are simply in survival mode, because that is almost what is celebrated in this crazy world that we live in. So busy, got all the things that we need to do. And for you to turn around and be like, you know what, I'm actually feeling really good and I'm really loving the life that I live in, is not something that would be celebrated. It would almost be like, oh, so up yourself, you know? So there's such a mismatch, because we all want to be living a life that feels incredible for us. Yet there's a huge component of our society that does not celebrate that for women to truly succeed. But I deeply desire the work that I do in the world is to open up the door and gateway for women to step through and step into a life where they no longer feel like they're living in a cage anymore. And I know so deeply, true to my heart, that anxiety is one of those doors that we get to either transform and alchemize anxiety from a space of, oh God, can't do this, freaking out a little bit, opening up the door and going, oh, oh, there's actually truth and wisdom on the other side of that anxiety that's been calling me the whole time. But because I was so scared of going there, and I was so scared of listening to it and getting quiet and hearing what it was trying to say, I missed this whole space of golden magic that was tapping me into my truth and where I need to go to thrive. So I know that this conversation can be jarring for a lot of people. The conversation that anxiety gets to become a superpower, that it gets to become a part of you that is always guiding you home, because it's scary when you're feeling it. When you're feeling anxiety bubble up in your body, and you can feel your hands start to get clammy and your throat starts to get all tight and your chest is like this, and you're like, oh God, it just feels, it's such a icky feeling to feel. But there has come a point in my healing journey where I've really learned and trusted and surrendered that all of that feeling is simply my alarm bell going, not this way. We're going to go over this way. But for however many years, I was like, no, I can't feel you. No, thank you. Too scary. Because I was so scared that if I actually dove into what was in and underneath the anxiety, that I would like fall into this big black hole that I would never be able to get myself out of, or I would open up layers of trauma that I wasn't ready to deal with. But the beautiful thing that happens when you start to look beyond your anxiety is it actually doesn't happen like that. When anxiety has come down and you're more regularly accessing your truth and learning to hold yourself and to seek your own inner wisdom, all of a sudden these things that you thought were so scary, that you didn't want to think about or talk about, or you didn't want to open up the trauma doors, or you didn't want to go into that scary thought, all of a sudden they start to dissipate. And that very thing that kept us stuck and stagnant for so long gets to ripple out into the world a little bit and not feel like it's such a heavy, all-consuming experience. So I hope my conversation today can plant a small seed that there is an incredible gateway with anxiety. It gets to be a message, a communication from your own inner guidance that's saying, babe, we've got to do things differently. And I feel like that in itself just takes out so much of the fear of feelings of anxiety. Because when you start to feel anxiety and you're like, oh my God, and I'm not going to be able to breathe, I'm not going to be able to cope, holy shit, I'm going to have a panic attack. Or you can allow yourself to go, okay, cool, I hear you. I know that this doesn't feel really good right now, but you're just trying to tell me we need to do something a little bit differently. Oh, yeah, that feels good. I feel like I can breathe that open a little bit more. Instead of staying in the head about how funky and how crappy this situation is, oh, we just get to do things a little bit differently. Fuck, that feels so much lighter, right? It feels so much lighter to say, let alone to hear. But we need to essentially get to a point where we're programming the brain to think that way. Like I can't just say now, next time you are anxious, just say to your brain that, oh, we get to do things differently. You're probably not going to remember, because anxiety, you're working in a different part of the brain. But it's planting the seed and planting the awareness that next time anxiety comes up and you start to go into that pattern of however you respond to that anxiety, there may come a time where you take a deep breath and you hear that little drop in, oh, it's just a message saying we need to do differently. Huh, okay, that feels a little bit better, you know? But please, gentle compassion with yourself. It is simply a process of retraining the brain to think differently. So that is not something that happens like that. So if you are someone who struggles with anxiety or feels like it's something that's all consuming and that you're stuck in, I highly encourage you to find a practitioner or to find a support person, to find a psychologist or a counselor, or even just a safe space that can hear you. because you'll be able to say, hey, when I feel anxious, I'd really like to reframe the way that I look at it. I'd like to look at anxiety as a message telling me to go a different direction or to come back to my truth, and that I'm a bit out of alignment. But when I'm feeling anxious, I can't think like that. So if you notice that I'm anxious, I'd really love you to remind me that I'm simply being called to go back in a different direction that feels like a truth for me. I hope that's making a little bit of sense, because when we're stuck in our own conditioning in our own brain, it's very hard to try and think differently, because brains are hardwired. Like, they're changeable, yes, but it takes work. So we can scaffold our environment around us to allow us to create new neural pathways that will talk and work our brain differently. We will much likely have greater success on getting the brain to function the way that we want it to function. Hopefully not too much jargon there for you. So it's been a morning. Fridays seem to have that energy for me. They are like boom, 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 go, 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 go. And then I get to around lunchtime, I'm like, whoa, my body does not love boom, 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 let's go, 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 go. It is not what it's here in this lifetime for. So when I'm running around and I'm like doing all the things, I can feel my anxiety start to come up, because it's not my truth. My truth is slow, it is present, it is mindful, it is flowy, there is groundedness. That is absolutely my truth. So when I'm running around and anxiety is starting to come up for me, I'm not going, oh God, I'm feeling anxious. I'm like, yeah, I know this isn't my truth, because this is not where I come alive, when I'm like doing all the things and ninjaing. And I know a lot of people are like, how do you do all these things? Like, you do so many things. And I'm like, I don't think that I'm running around and doing them, because I'm only doing things that feel really aligned for me. So it doesn't always feel heavy and hard. But in between that, when you've got to do all of the things that I do, like work-wise things I'm meaning, and then get kids out the door and deal with family dynamics. So I'm going to just bring myself back into my body, and I'd invite you to join me if you feel comfortable in doing so, because this is kind of first step for me on how I can start to bring anxiety back into a space of, oh, okay, I can see what's going on. So let me turn on some tunes. So when we're living a day in our head, it is very hard to come back into our body. What does that even mean, to come back into our body? But to come back into our body is where we connect to ourselves and we connect to the messages from our body, and it is where we find grace and we find joy and we find relaxation. We don't find that in here. So the first step for me to get out of here so I can start to figure out what the fuck is going on and what's underneath the anxiety is getting into my body. So as women, we do that by our senses. So we get into our body and out of our thinking brain whenever we activate our senses. So smell, eyes, taste, hearing, and touch. So anything you can do to activate any of your senses. Hearing, I've got music. Visual, I've got you guys. Well, me actually, but I feel like I'm looking at you. I can rub my hands, I can tap my feet. I've just got an oil, so I'm going to take a nice smell of oil if I can open it. So my senses are beginning to be activated. Eucalyptus. It always reminds me of my mum, and it's always just brings me back into my body. So if you want to join me for this, please feel free to just wiggle around your body a little bit. There's so much talk and stigma about becoming still, right? Still to meditate, grounding, still. But when we've got anxiety moving through our body, sometimes we just need to let it out. Shake it out of your hands, wriggle it out of your shoulders. It's going to feel like it's in different parts of your body actually all the time. So the more you're connecting into your body, the more you'll be like, oh, okay, today anxiety feels here. Oh, today I can feel anxiety here. Today I can feel anxiety in my lower back. Like wherever you're feeling that anxiety is, you get to move that and release that a little bit. No more still women. We are designed to move fluidly like the ocean. Yeah. So I encourage you to move and wiggle your body until you get that moment where you're like, oh, yeah, that feels good. And if you haven't connected to your body in a month, it might take a little bit longer. But when you get into the habit of doing it, you can just be like simply, oh yeah, that feels really good. You know, it'll start to get quicker. So wiggle, shimmy, however it is you need to do that. If you've got an essential oil close by, if you don't, you can try this later. This is something I do very often, is just take a drop of essential oil in my palm, rub my palms together, cup it over my hand, and take 3 deep breaths in through the nose and out through the mouth. If you don't have an oil, that's fine. Just simply close down your eyes and breathe with me. Ready? So I can automatically feel that release of tension through my body from 3 breaths. I just activated my sense of smell. I activated my sense of touch by touching my face. And I can already feel the difference in my mind. It's slower. It's quieter. And it is from a quiet and slow mind that we can connect to our truth. So I'd like you to close down your eyes now and placing your feet on the ground. Uncross your legs, uncross your arms. And if you can, I'd like you to place your hands on your thighs. And just rub your thighs with your hands back and forth. Nice and slowly, slowing it down. We find safety and comfort in our body through repetitive motion. That's why everyone loves to rock a baby. Why you feel so much better after a nice dance. So that repetitive motion where we're connecting to both sides of our body gets to rebalance and recalibrate the mind. Now bringing your attention to your breath. Keep your hands moving if you can. And we want to start to bring your breath a little bit deeper than where it's gone all day. So if you're coming in through the mouth, in through the nose, I want you to send the breath all the way down to the top of your pubic bone, into your womb space. So breathing deeper than your chest, breathing deeper than your belly, breathing into the creation of life force in your body. Breathing into the center and the seat of safety, of groundedness, of connection to something far greater than ourselves. You might notice where your body is in connection with the earth beneath you. If you're standing, your feet are connected to the ground. If you're sitting, you're connected to the seat. If there's a backrest, I invite you to completely surrender and melt into whatever surface it is that you currently find yourself on. Allow your body to be completely held and supported by the surface, knowing and trusting that at any moment in our day, we are completely held and surrendered to the support of the surface beneath us. We always have the ability within us to completely let go by simply connecting to the chair or the ground. So just on your next exhalation, let go. Relax your muscles down, relax your jaw, relax your shoulders and your belly. Relax your buttocks and your thighs and your quads. They feel like gooey golden nectar. Completely melt them into whatever surface you are sitting on. Relax your feet and your toes. And just enjoy the sensation that comes through your body when you feel like you have connected to her. You're breathing life into her through your lungs, and you're activating life force within her by allowing your cells to relax and unwind. You can breathe out with a releasing sigh or a song or a hum or whatever it is you need. And when you're ready, I invite you to place your hands on your heart and just ask for this gift of connection to integrate and fully land into your body now. Knowing that you have just created an absolute sanctuary within your body that you can access at any time that you need to. And when you're ready, opening up your eyes. Thank you. So sometimes when you're feeling levels of anxiety come up, simply connecting to your body through touch and through breath can be enough for it to dissipate. There are other times where that is not going to be enough for you because there's actually wisdom for you underneath those feelings. So if you're finding anxieties coming up and you're breathing, connecting, nothing's happening, the anxiety is still there, the next layer that we can take it into is talking about what your brain is actually trying to say. Now you can do this with someone, you can do it with yourself, or you can do it in your journal. So it depends on what mood I'm in or who's around as to whether I meditate and like talk out loud to myself and try and understand what it is that my brain's screaming at me, that I'm like, what the fuck? By talking out loud to myself, I'm like, oh, you get to slow it down. Let's slow down the mind so we can start to see that there is actually some sort of common sense in there. When you're in the anxious brain, it doesn't feel like that. But when you're slowing it down, you get to hear that there's actually something underneath the surface. That might take a little while of speaking totally out loud about whatever thoughts you've got in there. And you might be speaking out loud going, whoa, this is whack. But for you to actually string a sentence together requires you to consciously slow down your thoughts. So you'll get to access what it is that you might have going on in the background that's actually at the root cause of anxiety. So if no one's around, or I do this often on the way home from clinic, I deep breathe myself. If I've had a big day, if there's been lots of emotions in my space, I will debrief myself on my way home, and I will do it out loud because I get to decompress everything that's up here, and I get to also have like my own little mini counseling session before I walk through that door. So talking out loud, super powerful. Thank God for Bluetooth in cars, because it just looks like I'm on the phone, but I'm actually talking to myself. So that's one thing you might like to try. Another thing, if that doesn't work for you and you're not as auditory, is journaling it out. So what am I feeling? Where am I feeling it? Do I know what it's about? And you can keep digging until you can get to that point where the anxiety might have started for you. So I'm going to use an example. The other day, I woke up in the morning, I was feeling really beary, so I just wanted to stay at home, hibernate, watch movies, not talk to anyone, not do any of the things. And then my daughter came in and she was feeling really unwell. I'm like, oh, awesome. I really just wanted to tap out and just have a no adult day today. But if you're not well, that means I'm going to be on. And I really didn't want to do that. So I didn't notice that anxiety started from that moment, and it just continued to grow. Like it became too much to get up and get everyone food, and like they were just so loud and twitchy, and I'm like, why am I feeling like this? What is going on? I didn't realize that I had felt really beary and just wanted to hibernate, and my daughter coming in was like me going, oh, now I can't. And that started anxiety until I jumped into my journal. I'm like, okay, I'm really feeling anxious. I don't know what this is about. Where am I feeling it? Okay, I'm feeling it in my chest. Okay, interesting. What's happening in my chest? So I was massaging my chest just to connect to it. Where did it begin? I'm like, I don't know where it began. I just feel anxious and it feels yucky. I'm like, no, where did it begin? Because it's not always there. When you're in it, it feels like it's always there. But I'm like, okay, I woke up, I didn't really want to get out of bed, and then Charlie came in, and I retraced my steps, and then I realized she was sick. Oh, and that's when anxiety started. Okay, that's interesting. Why did anxiety start when she was sick? Like, it happens, kids get sick, you can just deal with it. And then I realized that it was a total misalignment from what I needed that day. And then I went, oh, I'm really feeling quite anxious about this because I don't feel like I've got the capacity to do it today. I don't feel like I've got it in me to caretake for someone because I'm tapped out and I need a day out. Cool. Now I know why I'm feeling anxious. So what do I need to do about that? Once I could see that I was anxious because I was living out of alignment with what I wanted, and sure, that's going to happen. You can't constantly just, choose when you're trying to run a household. It's got to be a little bit of a balance. When I could see that the anxiety was actually because I felt like I wasn't able to cope and had the capacity to do that today, then all I needed to do was shift my brain, because I absolutely 100% can do anything I want whenever I want to. So I went, okay, I'm feeling like the fear that's driving the anxiety is that I can't do this. That's a really old story for me. I've spent my whole life trying to rewrite that one, and it still comes up in small layers. It's not also all-consuming anymore, but it's still there. So that's actually not a truth. This fear is not a truth. Sure, I want to spend the whole day on the lounge in my trackies, having tea and watching docos. It's not a truth that I can't also look after my sick daughter. She's 8. She can essentially look after herself. So I'd had this anxiety come up about an old fear that wasn't mine. So I still got to meet my truth and be in trackies on the lounge with my daughter, because I got rid of the story that I couldn't do it. So the anxiety instant dissipates, and it didn't come back up that whole day. So this morning, anxiety probably more comes for me in the mornings when cortisol is a little bit high. That's natural, by the way. This morning I woke up and I'm like, I'm just feeling icky. It wasn't quite anxiety, but it was like that weary feeling, like if I didn't check it, probably would have turned into anxiety. That like, is there a pre-anxiety feeling? So I just felt a bit ick. So I'm like, what is going on? I know I've got a big day ahead of me. So I was feeling a little bit off. I'm like, am I just worried that I'm gonna have a big day and I just don't feel like I've got the ability to do it? But I know that's not a truth. I'm like, that's not it. So I didn't have my journal around me. It was out in the lounge room, but I had my husband next to me and the kids were off doing their thing. So I'm like, babe, I feel really weird. Like I feel like it's not quite anxiety, but I feel off, and I don't even feel like I want to go into work today. And he's like, what? I'm like, I know. I've never felt like this before. He's like, you've never said that ever. I'm like, I know. I don't know what is going on. And he's like, what are you worried about? And I went through my day. I'm like, to be honest, I think I'm maybe just feeling a bit overwhelmed because we're going away in like a week and a half for 6 weeks, and there's so much stuff to organize and so many people I need to see beforehand, and I don't know if I'm just feeling overwhelmed. And then it was like the moment I started talking about it, everything started to come out that I was thinking, feeling, everything that was running around in my head. And this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and this. And he's just like, And I just kept going until I went to the point I'm like, I'm actually nervous about doing a presentation at work today. He's like, really? I'm like, fuck, that's it. But because there was so much going on, there were so many thoughts and different things and closed doors and stuff that I'd kept within my brain for the last however many days since I've had a good chat with my hubby, I couldn't see the forest through the trees. So by verbally decompressing, and I almost see them like little loose ends going out through my mouth, and I could start to slow down my thoughts and slow down my breathing and go, God, this feels good to get this out. And then boom, came clarity. I'm feeling a little bit nervous about the talk I've got to do at work today. And, you know, I have a big story, like many, like an imposter syndrome story, or the story that the words that I speak are not valid. And I said, yeah, actually, I'm doing a talk today and I'm just worried they're probably going to think it's not that important information because they'll probably know it and I'll feel like an idiot. And he's like, why you want to talk about that thing though? I'm talking about the circadian rhythm to like the clinic practitioners here, which are awesome people, which I'm so not scared of at all. But there's still that self-minimization. Doesn't matter what level of soulpreneurship you get to, there's still that level of, oh God, I don't know if I can. So I was able to brainstorm it with him. He's like, well, why is it so important to you? I'm like, well, it's a circadian rhythm. Like, it's everything. Like, it's the main thing that I start with is rebalancing the circadian rhythm. And he's like, does everyone know about the circadian rhythm? I'm like, my brain tells me everyone knows about the circadian rhythm, but I know that's not a truth. And he's like, so all you need to talk about is why it's so important to you. If it's the most important thing to you in your clinic, in your day with your clients, then it's a pretty big deal. I'm like, and anxiety dissipates. Seriously, never ceases to amaze me. Now, it wasn't always that easy. It wasn't always as simple for me to go talk it out, write it out, breathe it out, shimmy it out. Either way, you got to get it out though. Keep it in here, you keep it locked in a cage and it's like an angry fucking beast and it's just gonna go stop ignoring me. And you'll be like, no, I don't want to. And it's just going to scream louder and louder and louder. So what do you choose? Do you want to choose to ignore the angry beast? Or do you start to go, oh, it feels really scary to ask you what you're actually trying to tell me, but fine, fuck it, tell me. What are you here for? What message do you have for me? Because there is always a message. I was feeling anxious about a talk I was going to do because I didn't feel like it was impactful enough. So I needed to come back to my truth because that wasn't my truth. That's why it was anxiety provoking for me. It's not my truth. I absolutely 100% believe the impact of the circadian rhythm. So I need to speak my truth. But I was coming from a space of fear of being judged and not being enough. So hello, anxiety. Can you see how I can see it as a message as opposed to being something that's really scary and consuming? So I'd invite you next time when anxiety comes up, please, if you found this information helpful, to revisit, come back into here. There is always a message underneath anxiety, always. Yeah, let me just see my notes and see if I missed anything. What is it trying to tell you? Slow it down, journal, talk to someone, or talk it out loud, and breathing. So activating your senses, getting into your body. Journal, talk it out loud. I can't stress that enough. If you're trying to problem solve in your own brain, you're only going to make it more tangled. How many hours have you spent when you're in an anxious mindset of trying to sort it out, and it just keeps getting worse? It blows my mind how many years I've spent trying to problem solve my anxiety in my brain. No, it just made it get bigger. No, it didn't dissipate it at all. So you know the old saying, a problem shared is a problem halved. It is a truth bomb because it allows you the process of slowing down, decompressing the brain, and alchemizing that anxiety into the wisdom that it's trying to tell you, because I promise you it is always trying to tell you something. So I will leave you with that to consider, my love. So please, I would love to know what you found most helpful from this conversation today. I would love to know any ahas, or if you felt like there's possibly been a shift in anxious feelings for you through learning this work as anxiety into liberation, because it gets to be an access point for your 100% freedom. Like, to think that anxiety, the thing that feels like such a cage, can be your liberation into freedom is just, I love it. Like, I love that conversation so much. I love to have that conversation with women. Thank you so much for tuning into this conversation. I hope you got something out of it, and I'd love to hear. Have a beautiful day.